Mem Amud Aleph. Okay, good evening. We're ready to get started. We're learning Maseches Zevachim. We're on Daf Mem Amud Aleph, halfway down. We're at the words Abaye Amar. I wanted to really lurch ahead today, but honestly, just a very, very difficult blot and took me a very long time to learn. And I've learned it 5 times and I still don't understand it so well. So my wife said to me the other day, she's like, I don't understand. You listen to a shiur. Why is Zevachim so hard? I'm like, I now know that you've never learned the Daf Gemara. So, Nashim Tzidkanias. Kol Malami Bita Torah Kila Malam the Tiflis. Just like, so I'm like, yeah, these are very, very hard Gemaras. I'm like, I could learn them 20 times and still not totally grasp them. Very hard. So we really are in the middle of a sugya. That's the truth. It was a really poor breaking time when we ended our shiur. We're halfway down on Mem Amud Aleph, and the Gemara says, Abaye Omar, that L'Reb Yehuda, which was a shita that we saw earlier, Nami Itzrich. Now this is very out of context, but the point over here is that we had a doubling of psukim that showed us that there was an obligation for Matan Daled, that we had to bring korbanos, achatas in particular, with 4 sprinkles. But there was also an extra word of Kain Yaseh. So we had thought that Kain Yaseh was only for one person. Turns out it's even for Rabbi Yehuda. Nami Itzrich. Why does he need both? Because Sal Kadai Techamina, if I would have only had the doubling of the psukim and not the extra pasuk of Kain Yaseh, Midi Dehave Asmicha Ushiyare Hadam, I might have thought that the halachos of Matan Damim would be similar to that of Smicha and Shiare Hadam, of pressing down on the animal's head before smicha and before shchita, and shiare hadam, of pouring the blood post zrika, the shiare hadam, the extras beyond the zrikas, pouring them on the yesod. And what would have been the problem of comparing matan damim to smicha and shiare hadam? The problem is that the afal gav dechsivan uchvilan lo me'akva, that even though smicha and shiare hadam are listed multiple times in Chumash, but halacha l'maisa, if you skip smicha, the korban is still kosher. And if you skip shiare hadam, the korban is still kosher. So we were afraid that had we learned from smicha and shiare hadam, where there's kefil lashon, we have it multiple times, to our case, then matan arba nami lotis akev, then I might have thought, atzushtel, just like over there by smicha and shiare hadam, where there's kefil lashon, we still see that it's not le'ikuva. And if you forget smicha or if you forget shiare hadam, the korban still kosher, you get kapara. The same thing would be true by matan arba. Kamash malan, that we have the words of Kain Ya'aseh based on a pasuk earlier. This is actually on the 3rd line of this page. Kamash malan, that it is le'ikuva. We needed this word even according to Rabbi Yehuda to distinguish between the world of smicha and shiraim, that granted are listed in Chumash many times, but that are not ma'akev. But by matan damim, we needed an extra push. That extra push that taught us that it's ma'akev was the pasuk of Kain Ya'aseh. We're a little bit more than halfway down. We had a brisa that we learned the other day that said lepar ze par Yom Kippurim. Like many aspects of this Masechta that we've seen, there's a certain terseness in the language, leaving out things that would have made our lives easier to understand. And really what's going on over here is in the brisa that we had learned over the end of last week and over Shabbos, there's a brisa that speaks about a par, and it says ze par Yom Kippurim. And the Gemara says, Lamai Hilchasa. To what end are we learning this halacha? And really, what this is talking about is a comparison between Paralim Davar Shel Tzibur, Par Kohen Mashiach, and Par Yom Kippurim, that all of them seemingly have a similarity. So the Gemara says, Lamai Hilchasa, to what end are we learning this? Le'akev, if you want to say that it's to teach me that the Matan Dalid is Ma'akev, that the basic halacha that we've been learning about the zrikos, that we know already, pshita, because chukah ksiva be. We already know because it has a language of chok used in one of its psukim by par. So we know that by all of the paros of Yom Kippurim, and all of the par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur and the par Kohen Mashiach, all of those have a similar halacha in that they need zrikas hadam and that it's ma'akev. So that can't be what the drasha of Lepar is coming to teach us. So what then is this broad comparison between these 3 korbanos of Par Yom Kippurim, Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur, and Par Kohen Mashiach, these 3? So it says the Gemara, answer number one, 2/3 of the way down. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, lo nitzcha, this comparison is only made elo the Rebbe Yehuda, to teach us to Amar, kiksiva chuka, oh, we thought it was pashut about matan damim, but no, the chuka that you thought was there to teach me that matan damim is le'ikuva by all three of these korbanos, that's used for something else entirely. What is this used for? A din by the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. Says the Gemara as follows: Kiksiva chuka, when we have the word chuka in Beikra Tes Zayin, that's advar hanasin bebigdei lavan bifnim. That's talking about a Kohen who's lifnai v'lifnim. He's in the inner sanctum of the Beis Hamikdash. He's wearing his bigdei lavan, but he makes an error. She'im hiktim maaseh l'chavero. If he does any one act out of order, everything had to be mamish. They had to be holding cup perfectly, memorize their whole. Everything had to be done perfectly. So says the Gemara, lo asa v'lo klum. If he does the avoda lifnai v'lifnim in the big day lavan, but he does anything out of order, it's a zero. Masha ein ken aval dvar hanasin b'big day lavan bachutz. If he was wearing big day lavan bachutz, and then he did something out of order, hiktem ma'aseh lechavero, masha asa asui. It's not ideal, but it's kosher. So what do we see over there? We see that the word chukah is already being used. So now, what you thought was pashut about the commonality between the Par Yom Kippur and Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur and Par Korem Mashiach, that they all are going to be chayv and matan damim because of chukah. No, that word's being used to teach me a din lifnai v'lifnim, that if the Kohen Gadol were to do anything out of order, lo asa v'lo klum. So I might have thought that midich kesidran lo me'akve, that since outside the Beis HaMikdash, outside the Heichal, if you did it outside, it's not me'akev. Maybe hazos name lo me'akev. That's what I would have thought. So therefore, kamash malon, the pasuk, the drasha of lepar, to teach us this commonality that no, the hazos are me'akev, because we can't learn it from the word chukah. That's taken already. That's taken already. So that's a long-winded version of this. So says the Gemara, wait 1 second. Your mare makom, according to the Gemara, is lepar. That's what teaches us that by these three parim, or paros, I don't know which one it is, that by these three cows, that the din is that they're chayiv, that all of their hazos are ma'akiv. That can't be the source. Maskif la papa umi that this is the source. I'll prove to you that this isn't the source of the Gemara, that the matan dalad are ma'akiv. V'hatanya, 5-6 lines from the bottom. The pasuk says, "V'kila mechaper sakodesh." When you finish, you're mechaper the holiness. Okay, it's a little bit of a loose translation, but the Gemara says as follows. And really, what's going on? The Meforshim explain is that this part of the pasuk is actually extraneous. We don't really need this. We could have known this without it. So therefore, says the Gemara, Im kiper kila. If you manage to do the actions that generate kapara, then kila, then you're done with your avoda. V'im lo kiper, if you don't do the minimum actions to get kapara, lo kila, then you're not done with your avoda. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. A little bit of a discussion about who's who here, but we're going to go with the name of Rabbi Akiva for now. Amar le Rabbi Yehuda, mipnei ma lo ne'amar, why don't you follow as follows? And really, why don't you follow the organization of the pasuk? The pasuk says the language of kila before chiper. Yet the drash of Rabbi Akiva was im kiper kila. So Rabbi Yehuda says, why are you learning it that way? Just say im kila. Once you get to the end of your avoda, kiper. Ve'im lo kila, lo kiper. Why aren't you learning it that way? What's the difference between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda? So you have to just listen to the subtlety, because this took me a long time to figure out. It's not so terribly complicated. I just missed it the first couple times. Im kiper, if you do the minimums to get you to kapara, then you're done with your avoda. That was Rabbi Akiva. But Rabbi Yehuda was the flip. Once you finish everything, then you get kapara. So Rabbi Akiva was saying, do the minimums and you get kapara, and then you're done with your avoda. Rabbi Yehuda said, you need to do everything to get your kapara. Rabbi Yehuda was a minimalist. There's the chatchila and b'di'evet. Just do everything b'di'evet and then kila, then you're done. Rabbi Yehuda's like, no. When are you kila?
What are the two sides?
Rabbi Kiva is the first side. He says first im kiper, then kila. I might have said something wrong. It could be. Yeah. Sorry. Im kiper kila. if you do the things that generate kapara, namely, if you all the minimums, but it's minimums, it's not everything. Yeah. So then kila, then you're done with your avoda. Rabbi Huda flipped it. In kila, only when you finish all of the steps, then kiper.
When you finish it all, you're done. And of course,
No, he doesn't say when you finish it, you're done. When you get kapara, you're done. When you get kapara, you're done. There's a minimum.
Which is the sprinkles, whether it's 1, 2, whatever.
But it's the lower number of those. Let's call it 1 for now, right? Because we saw. You should do more, but kila, you could be finished with your avoda at that point. Same kiper, if you've checked the minimum boxes, then kila. But Rabbi Yehuda flips it. He says, im kila, when you finish all of the steps, then kiper. Seemingly not. That would be the difference between their shitas. Significant difference. Significant difference. It's very hard. So Rabbi Yehuda says that we should learn this way. And ve'im lo kila lo kiper. But one of the things that we see from Rabbi Yehuda is that everything has to be done. Is that the matan dalid is le'ikuva. That's how he holds. Im kila, only when you finish all the steps, then you get kapara.
That's even the shiraim.
Even the shiraim, everything. Yeah, certainly the fnim, that's true, because we already learned that. We learned that on Shabbos that shiraim are ma'akev in the. Well, it's talking about the avod of Yom. This is talking about the avod of Yom Kippurim. So this is talking about lifnim. Huh? What do you mean he does come out and do more? Well, he's got 5 steps to do. He's got whatever. He's got however many steps. He's got 10 mikvahs.
No wiggle.
No. Yeah, and I don't even know what all the kulas are by Rabbi Akiva. I have to look and see what would be different by him, because this was lifnai v'lifnim, but maybe he held no shiram. I don't know what his leniency was. But what's
that's that Rashi, the lo kilo lo kiper, 4 lines from the bottom. Volume first say there you go. The shiram be not.
Beautiful.
Literally pouring out the shiram, which is like
it's extra.
It feels like it's extra. I don't know enough to run Rabbi Kiva.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's when he says kiper, kila, that means after you've done your matan dalid, but you haven't done. But if you walk out and you forget to do it, you still get kaparim. So both of them hold the matan dalid is le'ikuva, which is really the critical part of this Gemara. That was our question. We said that you could learn from the word par. We already know that Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda, while they do argue on which word comes first in the drasha, and therefore what's le'ikuva and what's not, while they argue about that, they agree that matan dalid lifnai v'lifnim is le'ikuva. So don't tell me that your source says lapar. We already have other marmikomos on this. So it says the Gemara, that's why we reject answer number 1. Answer number 1 was that because the word chukah was already used, we need the word par to teach us that matan daled is le'ikuva. Says the Gemara, absolutely not. We already know from Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yehuda that it was le'ikuva. We don't need your source. We got other tanaim. So therefore, the Gemara gives a second answer as to why we need the word par. Amar Rav Papa, lo nitzracha. Why do we need this word par? Really more broadly, why do we need the comparison of the par of the Yom Kippurim, the par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur, and the par Kohen Mashiach? We need that because lo nitzracha ella le'es bidam uvitfila, for 3 drushas that are represented by these words. What are the 3 drushas that are represented by these words? Es, the word es, the Gemara says, teaches us, Amar of Acha bar Yaakov, lo nitzrecha ela lahachshir amin shebe'etzba. If a person has a blister on their finger, that is not considered to be a chatzitza. Okay, so you played golf, you're a Kohen, you played golf the day before your shmira, the day before your go to the Beis HaMikdash, and your left hand's holding the club. Well, actually, that doesn't really hurt so much. Your right hand's hurting, whatever, you got a blister, it's not a chatzitza. The word es teaches me that it's not a chatzitza. And in this context, we are taking the word par, and we're taking the word es, and we're saying the rule that we learned from es applies to all 3 cases of par. Par shel Yom Kippurim, par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur, and par Kohen Mashiach. That's din number 1. What does the word bidam teach us? That we're now going to expand from one to all three. Bidam sheyehei bidam shiur tvila meikara. That when you are mekabel the dam in the klishares, there has to be at least a minimum shiur of dam in that klishares to do the zrika. So the dugma, let's say you had two klishares, and one's holding half and the other's holding half, and each of them have half a shiur. Nope. The initial kli has to have enough dam. So what does the word par do in this case? It expands it just from par shal Yom Kippurim to that as well to par halam davar shal tzibur par kohen Mashiach. And what does the word v'toval mean? Or it was actually referenced a little bit differently in the bottom as uvitfila. So we've learned S is blisters are not a chatzitza. We learned bidam that the kli has to hold enough. And lastly, v'toval v'lo misapeg, not from something that absorbed. In other words, you can't do zrika by taking a cloth that absorbs blood and then touching the mizbeach. That's insufficient. You have to do zrika. You have to do zrika.
The Torah, oh my God, like,
Black on white.
so interesting, you need a drasha for that, no?
I don't even know how to respond to that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's what Rashi says a third of the way down. Mekanet bedofne hakli. Kach shamati b'menochas. He didn't even know for sure. But you're basically wiping the walls of the kli. I'm not sure.
If he means to say not a cloth.
Is it like wiping like this?
You can't come up the sides. You can't come up the sides, you gotta dip. I wonder if that's what this means, because the cloth seems odd. That was sort of my question. Misafeg is sfog as a sponge. You are right. That's an absorbing usually. So
We are talking about spreading. The question is, its question is, what spreading is it? Mekaner bedofne hakli. Is he taking the kli? Is he taking the kli with blood and indirectly?
No, I think you're.
And then no, because I'm not sure what version of this. I don't know.
Sure.
Sounds like what you're saying, but
Don't go sure.
yes.
Don't worry, it's gonna be easy.
Yeah. If Rashi's like, I think I heard once, then we're all in trouble. So like a lot of trouble. Okay, so whatever the version is of this, it's a little hard to know what it is. So it says the Gemara that these three halachos of Es and Bidam and Vitvila, all these three halachos, what did we do with them? Says Rav Papa, we needed them to be expanded from the world of Parsha Yom Kippurim to the other paros of Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur and Par Kohen Mashiach. And we need all three of these halachos. We're on Mem Omid Beis. Ve'itzrich lemichtav bidam. Why did we need the case of blood? The ikasav rachmana only v'toval. Havamina afal gav deleka shir tvila me'ikara. I might have thought that v'toval is not allowed, even if you don't have enough of a shear. Therefore, kasav rachmana bidam. And v'ikasav rachmana bidam. If I only had bidam, havamina afilim misapeg. Even if I was spreading it, therefore kasav rachmana v'toval. The end of this drasha has nothing to do with what we're learning. It's just part of the same Marimako. And the Gemara says, Mizbach Torahs Samim, Lamali. Why do we have to say Mizbach Torah Samim? The context of the psukim, we know what we're talking about already. It's the inner sanctum, it's the inner Mizbech. So the Gemara says, 8 lines down, Shim lo nischanech ha-mizbech bektoras hasamim lo hayamazeh. The first action that needs to be done with the Mizbech HaKtoras is putting Ktoras on it. And if you don't do that, you can't do other avodos. That's like the initiation, champagne bottle. Theirs was only the samim, no hayamazeh. Now, we've learned two answers to our question. First, the question we asked was, if we have a doubling of the psukim to teach us matan damim, why do we have the word also lipar? So the Gemara says, answer number one was because you think we already knew about matan damim, but the word chukah that you were saying was pshita was used for something else, therefore lipar. The second, that gets rejected by Rav Papa because we already have a Makom elsewhere with Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Huda that teaches that to us already. So Rav Papa comes along and says, no, the reason why we have Lapar is to expand the triple din of Es, Bedam, and Tvila from the world of Yom Kippurim, the Parsha Yom Kippurim, to the world of Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor and Par Kohen Mashiach. And here we have a raya for Rav Papa. Tanya Kavase de Rav Papa. The pasuk says va'asa and ka'asher asa. So we already have a lashon over there that we know that we need to do zrika. Ma talmud lomar lepar lerabos par Yom Kippurim lechol ma she'amar be'inyan. In regards to everything, what does everything mean? It means the three things that Rav Papa just taught us. And therefore we see a raya from the Tanaim that seems to indicate like that Rav Papa was correct, that the usage of the word par is to expand the trifecta of es and bedam and tefillah. Now, we're really done, but we're going to quote another shita that argues with Rebbe, and it's going to take up the rest of our day to learn this shita of Rebbe Shmuel. But we already have what we need, and Rav Papa has been vindicated. And we know that the word lepar in the Gemara, in the Pasuk, is used to expand that triple of es and bedam and tefillah from the world of Yom Kippurim to the other two paros, the par helam davar shel tzibor and the par kohen Mashiach. But either way, let's learn the shita of Rebbe Shmuel. Very, very difficult piece of Gemara. Really, it would take hours for us to do this the right way. I know that's not a nice thing to say, so we're just going to learn it as best we can on the surface level. We're a third of the way down on Mem Amud Beis. Amar Rabbi Shmuel, I disagree with you. And Kal v'chomer. Okay. Uma b'makom shelo hushva korban l'korban. Even when the two korbanos may not be the same, let's say, for example, a par and a se'ir, which are different animals. But even though they're different animals, hishva maisim lemaisim, the actions of bringing one korban is similar to bringing the actions of another. Let's say the 4 steps of shchita, kabbalah, holach, and zrika are the same by a par as they are by a se'ir. So then, if makom shehishve korban, the korban, if it's the same korban, let's say they're both a par, eno din sheyishve ma'aseh la'ma'aseh, then of course the halachos of how you bring that par should be exactly the same. This is exceedingly cryptic because we don't know what he's talking about. We have no idea what the kal v'chomer means. The Gemara is going to dig into it, but because we don't even understand the kal v'chomer, it's hard to know how he's arguing on Rebbe. So we kind of have to learn more in order to understand this. So the Brisa continues with Rabbi Shmuel. Elamat tamad lomar lepar. What then is the usage of the word par? Because it's not what the Brisa said. The Brisa that we just brought, that we said was a proof for Rebbe, that was a proof for Rav Papa, was a drasha from Rebbe. What did it say? L'rabos par Yom Kippurim l'chol ma she'amar be'inyan. He said it's a broad expansion. So seemingly Rabbi Shmuel is saying, I don't even need that because I have a kal v'chomer that would be included. Because if two korbanos are not the same, but the way they're brought is the same, then certainly all the paros are going to have the same halachos. So that's what the Gemara says. Therefore, he has to learn the word par differently. Talmud Lomar, halfway down on Mem Amud Aleph, Amud Beis. Therefore, Ma Talmud Lomar lepar must be ze par ha'elam davar shel tzibor. Lepar ze par kohen Mashiach. We just have to bring these korbanos more pasha, like a more basic understanding of those drashas, instead of this halabaloo that Rav Papa came up with, that I need the word par to take this triple drasha and expand it from one par korban to another. So now we have to analyze what was his kal v'chomer. Amar Mar. Uma b'makom shelo hushva korban lekorban. When we have two korbanos that are not the same, and the kal v'chomer continues, that we would still say that the way it's brought is the same, all the more so if the korbanos were the same. So the Gemara says, what did it mean when Rabbi Shmuel said in the Brisa, lo hushva korban lekorban? Ilema par Yom Kippurim v'se'ir Yom Kippurim. Granted, they're both Yom Kippur, but they're different animals. So that makes sense. And if you look back and kind of keep a finger on the beginning of the Kal V'chomer, Uma b'makom shelo hushva korban l'korban, it's not the same animal. One's a par and one's a se'ir. Well, Ika lemifrach, we have a problem, malahanach, in regards to the par Yom Kippurim and the se'ir Yom Kippurim, shekei nichnas damam lifnai v'lifnim, their bloods get brought to the inside, but that's not the same as what you're trying to expand it to, which is par helam davar shel tzibor and par kohen Mashiach, which are not lifnai v'lifnim. So you can't make a kal v'chomer that's broken. The kal v'chomer has to fit. So if you're going to say that the shalo b'makom where they're not the same is the par Yom Kippurim and the Syria, those are done lifnai v'lifnim. You can't learn from that to a more kal scenario, a par helam davar shel tzibor. You can't do that. So that can't be what Rabbi Shmuel meant when he said that they were lo hushva korban lekorban. So the Gemara tries again, 10 lines from the bottom. What did Rabbi Shmuel mean when he said that the korbanos were not the same? And the Gemara says, Ella, perhaps it was par helam davar shel tzibor usiire avodas kochavim. Maybe the korbanos that were lo hushva were the par helam davar shel tzibor, and the korban of a seir, different animals, par and seir, and different functions as well, I might add. One is for a psak that Bezdin made erroneously, and the other is for people who served avodah zarah. That doesn't work either. Malahan ika lemifrach. Malahanach, these two korbanos of the par helam davar shel tzibor and the seir avodas kochavim, shekain mechaper al averos mitzvah yedua. When we learn this in Horius, when we bring a par helam davar shel tzibor, we know exactly what went wrong. We know what the Chachamim paskin and what the Yidden followed. Otherwise, you don't bring a par helam davar shel tzibor. And the seir of avodah zarah is the seir of an avodah zarah. We know you worshipped avodah zarah. Masha ein kain, the korbanos that are brought for Yom Kippur are broad, and they're not specific to any one avera. They're a catch-all. So therefore, that doesn't work either. So again, what did Rabbi Shmuel mean in his Kal V'chomer when he said that they were lo hushve korban lekorban? Let's try our third approach, 6 lines from the bottom on Mem Amud Beis. Elapar helam davar shel tzibor useir shel Yom Kippurim. How about the par helam davar shel tzibor and the korban of the seir of Yom Kippurim? V'hachi kamar. And here is the Kal V'chomer. Uma b'makom shelo hushvu korban lekorban dehai par v'hai sa'ir the par helam davar shel tzibor and the seir Yom Kippurim hushvu maisim lemai dekasvi bei. There they have a common denominator that they need 7 zrikos on the paroches and that they need matan dalid. So then makom shehushvu korban lekorban dehai par v'hai par, which is the par Yom Kippurim and the par kohen Mashiach, eino din shvushvu maisim lemaisim. So this is again, I understand it's complicated, but what he's saying over here is now we have, it's like we read a formula. If X is true, then all the more so Y is true. So we're getting some of the variables to be a little bit more clear. So what the Gemara is saying over here is that the shelo hushvu korban, what were the different korbans where they had the similar outcomes? So we said that's the par helam davar shel tzibor and Yom Kippurim. And we're going to learn from there to the par Yom Kippurim and the par Kohen Mashiach. V'asa lapar on the top of Mem Aleph of Mem Aleph. V'asa lapar Yom Kippurim le'es b'dam v'tfila mipar Kohen Mashiach. V'asi le seir Yom Kippurim miseire avodas kochavim mikal v'chomer. So we have a multi-step process to understand Rabbi Shmuel's shita, that he disagrees with the function of the use of the word par. And really, we didn't need it for the same way that Rav Papa did, or I should say that Rabbi did. We needed it for Rabbi Shmuel's version. And what we did with the par Yom Kippurim is that we were able to then expand the halachos of S, which taught us that there's no chatzitza by a blister, bidam, which taught us that there had to be a minimum shiur in the kli shares, and tvila, that you can't do any type of wiping of the blood, it needed to be sprinkling. And ve'asa le par Yom Kippurim le'es bedam v'tvila mi par kohen Mashiach. We learned it from par kohen Mashiach in this sophisticated Kal V'chomer. And ve'asi le seir Yom Kippurim, and the seir Yom Kippurim, where did we get that from? Mis'ir avodas kochavim mi Kal V'chomer, which we didn't yet learn about. Okay, there's just so much packed in here. It's again a complex Kal V'chomer. It didn't sound complex when we first read it. It did to me, actually, maybe it did to you. I don't know. It's just a hard Kal V'chomer. Then says the Gemara, that last thing you said that you tried to sneak in, that you just said there's a seir avodas kochavim mikal v'chomer. You first made a hekesh and then you made a kal v'chomer, or you made a kal v'chomer and then you made a hekesh. You're not allowed to do that. V'chidavar halamed behekesh chozer malamed bekal v'chomer. This is a methodology question. If you make a hekesh between two things, which we just did with some of the korbanos, can you then make a kal v'chomer? And the Gemara says you're not allowed to do that. That's just a broken methodology. We have hekesh and we have gzera shava, but you can't combine them. One coupon. You only get to do one thing at a time. So you have to pick. So the Gemara says this limud is unacceptable. Your final extension that you had over here from Seir Yom Kippurim, that you learned out Seir Yom Kippurim, mi seire avodas kochavim from a kal v'chomer is not allowed because it's based on a hekesh. V'chidavar lamed behekesh chozer umelamed bekal v'chomer. Amar Papa kasavar tana debei Rabbi Shmuel. Yes, davar lamed behekesh chozer melamed bekal v'chomer. Fine, that's just how he learns. Says the Gemara. Wait 1 second. We have a problem with your basic drasha. When it says lepar and you darshaned zepar helam davar shel tzibor. Well, look at the surrounding psukim. It's all talking about par helam davar shel tzibor. Ha b'tzibor gufei ksiv. You're making a drasha that the word par is. It's like looking at a pronoun where it's very clear that the he in the context is a particular person, and then you're like, he is a particular person. So it'll say, Phil went to the store. He purchased a bar of soap. He is Phil. Thank you very much. Really not helpful. I can read. So if I didn't read the psukim, I'm just saying I could read. I should have read the psukim. But here the Gemara is saying your drasha is ridiculous because that's the clear context of the psukim. Amar Rav Papa, follow along, multi-step process again. Amar Rav Papa, a quarter of the way down. Mishum deboy agmure, because we wanted to learn par helam davar shel tzibur in regards to that korban biyoseres ushtei klayos. We wanted to learn that these body parts of the yoseres and the shtei klayos, and we wanted to extend it to l'seirei avodas kochavim. But upar helam davar shel tzibur begufei lo ksiv. But the yoseres and shtei klayos were not written there, and only behekesha asi. We only knew that the yoseres and the shtei klayos, the yoseres hakaved and the shtei klayos, we only knew that from a hekesh, and we knew that we couldn't learn a hekesh from a kal v'chomer according to some approaches. Therefore, itzrich the word lepar lemehabe command chsibei begufei. Even though we learned it behekesh about the yoseres and the shtei klayos, we added a drasha. Kodesh Baruch Hu added a drasha to make it that it wasn't like a hekesh, so that we could then extend it. Lehabe davar lamed behekesh chozer melamed behekesh. So what that, I don't know fully what it means, but it means that we added a drasha on what sounded like a hekesh to make it not a hekesh. Now we don't have to worry about the principle that we learned at the top of the page of that you can't make a kal v'chomer on a hekesh. Right? Correct. Something along those lines. Not anymore. That's what the word lepar does. We didn't even need the word lepar because, again, that pronoun, I knew exactly who we were talking about. Lepar, yes, you're talking, the whole parak, the whole few psukim we're talking about param davers too. What? So you're talking about, everybody knows what the word lepar means. It's not extra, and we know what it means, so stop defining it. No, we needed it to make it not appear as though there was a hekesh, so that from there we can make a hekesh. You can't make double hekeshim, or double hekesh to kal v'chomer. So because we wanted to be able to extend, because we wanted to be able to extend the halachos of yoseres and shtei klayos from seirei ovdei kochavim to the world of par helam davar shel tzibor, we therefore needed the word lepar to make it like it wasn't a hekesh. Tanya kavase de Rav Papa, we have this already halfway down. Ve'asa kasher asa matamol nomar lepar. What do we learn from the word lepar? Well, lefishin emar v'heim heviu es korban amishel Hashem v'gomer. Chatasem, what does that word teach us? Elu seirei avodas kochavim. That word is talking about a seir for people who worshipped avodah zarah. What does the word shigigasam in that pasuk mean? Ze par helam davar shel tzibur. Chatasem al shigigasam. And there's something similar about the seirei avodas kochavim and the par helam davar shel tzibur. Amra Torah, the Torah teaches us chatasem, the seir of the avodas kochavim, harei lecha kishigigasam. In that the yoseres and the shtei and the shtei klayos are going to be included in the korban. Shigigasan mehechan lamarata. How do you know that the par helam davar shel tzibur had the yoseres and the shtei klayos? Lo behekesha v'chi davar halamed behekesh. Of course not. And if the only way that you knew that the yoseres and the shtei klayos were brought by the par helam davar shel tzibur was from a hekesh, you can't do that. Therefore, Talmud Omar lepar. So same exact thing that we saw earlier. Rav Papa is vindicated yet again. Zeparam davar shel tzibur and lepar zepar kohen Moshiach. That's how he learns those drashos, especially the param davar shel tzibur, that we extend to all of them, the yoseres and the shtei klayos. But if we wouldn't have had the word lepar, it would have been a hekesh, and then we couldn't have learned the hekesh any further, and would have been very limited to seirei avodas kochavim, but not to our case. Let's analyze this last line. This is a sugya within a sugya within a sugya. The Gemara says, Omar Mar, Chatasem, we said, Elu Seire Avodas Kochavim, that word in the Pasuk in Bamidbar was talking about the korban that's brought when one worships Avodah Zarah, Rachmana Litzlan. Tepok Lemi Kra Kama de Amar Mar Chatas Lebrabo Seire Avodas Kochavim. Why don't we already learn this from another Pasuk that was already listed from the word Chatas, and we already had that word? Why did you wait? Amar Papa Israch, we need both of them. Salkadai techamina hanimili hazos sivan begufe. I might have thought that we're only talking about the korbanos that exist. Let's take a look at the last Rashi on the page so we understand this at least a little bit. Salkadai techamina hanimili di israbu sire avodas kochavim ledin par helem hazos sivan begufe behedja abal yoser suklayos. I might have thought that it's only the matan damim that applies, but not the Yoseris and the Klayos. Aval, Yoseris ushtei Klayos the Lochsiv on top of Mem Amud Beis. Aval, when it comes to these body parts, the Lochsiv Begufe, Emalo, I might have thought that they would not have been included. Kamash Malan, that the Yoseris and the Shtei Klayos do apply. Whew. We're going to learn another 12 lines until we're about a third of the way down, and then I'm just going to go collapse somewhere. Yeah, is that fair? Okay.
You got 6 minutes till March.
I got 6 minutes till Marv. Yeah, I'll be asleep by then. Amar le Rav Huna bereder Rav Nasan le Rav Papa. V'hatana, it should say le Rabos, and it's not so clear in on the side of my Gemara as to how that's true. I'm not using my regular Gemara. Does anyone have a regular Oz v'Hadar? This Gemara says v'hatana. I can't even find the base. The Shita Mekubetis is so long. You see it? Oh. You're right, I just found it. Thank you.
I've never.
Yeah, it's extremely long notes. Yeah, and by the way, the Shita Mekubetes historically in this Masechta is super short, so interpret as you will. Yeah, no, we're not. We don't have time to read any of them. Yeah, no, it wraps all the way. It's 2 columns, yeah. Yeah. By the way, look at his last 2 words before Gimel. V'hashtanicha. Now everything's okay. Like thank you very much. Yeah. Maybe when we're in yeshiva, we'll come back around. So it says the Gemara that v'hatana lerabos par Yom Kippurim l'chol ma she'amar be'inyan ka'amar. So we had learned earlier that there was a Tana that said that the par Yom Kippurim to include all things. Remember we said that was S and Bidam and Tefillah, all things were included. So wait 1 second, if we have a Tana saying that, why did Rav Papa tell me at the beginning of the Gemara today that that's what the word Lapar is for? I have Tanaim, we'll talk about it. I need Rav Papa to make a drasha. Rav Papa's an Amora. I don't need Rav Papa. So the Gemara wants to know, why did Rav Papa have to say that? The Gemara says, because Tanaihi. It's actually a machlokas Tanaim as to how we learn these 3 principles. Tana debe Rab me Rebbe Marbi Hachi. Tana de Rab Marbi Hachi. From the world of Rav, they included all of these. And Tana de Rebbe Yishmael lo Marbi Hachi.
Not very small would be Tanai.
Even in the previous brisa where it said Rebbe's name, that's a problem because Rebbe Shmuel and Rebbe did not overlap. Yeah, it could be. It seems over here that it's Rav Tanu. Yeah, not here. No, even Rashi quotes it this way: Tanoihi, Tana, debe Rav Marbi Hachi. Rav learned it this way, and Rebbe Shmuel did not include them. Tana debe Rebbe Shmuel mipnei ma nemru yoser sushtei kleus bepar kohen Mashiach v'lo nemru bepar helem davar shel tzibur. Why did the Torah speak about the Osiris and Shtei Kleos b'fem mole by par kohen Mashiach, but not by par helem davar shel tzibur? So he called this an agadata in the shiur. I'm like, this doesn't qualify. It's not this short. As good as you're gonna get in Zevachim. I'm gonna take it, but it's very short-lived. So the Gemara says, why was it not by a parhalam davar shel tzibur? Because people messed up. Mashal lemelech basar v'dam. Shezamal ohavo. HaKadosh Baruch Hu got angry at the one that he loved. Umiyet b'sirchonu mipnei chibaso. And he minimized what he asked them to do. Of course, the halacha still applies, but he was upset at them. You know, like you just go upstairs. What you really meant was go upstairs and clean your room. You were upset. Parhalam davar shel tzibur. People made a mistake. People were not keeping halacha proper. Granted, it wasn't their fault, obviously, because it's Sanhedrin, whatever. The Tana debate Rabbi Shmuel similarly. There we have the language of Paroches HaKodesh, beautiful language, the holy Paroches. But lo ne'emar beparhalam davar shel tzibur. You can already see with the trend because that was where mistakes took place. Mashal lemelech basar v'dam. Shesarcha al Medina, alav Medina. The king was upset. Im miuta sarcha. If only part of the people had done poorly, pamalia shalom iskaimes, then everyone, his government would have still been functioning. Im ruba sarcha. But if most of the Jews failed, then remember our parameters for parhalam davar shel tzibur is 51%. Ein pamalia shalom iskaimes. So he was upset. It's not that it's not sprinkled on the paroches hakodesh, but Hashem was upset, so he left out the language, and that's why there's inconsistencies in the psukim. We'll stop right here. Hashem will pick up again tomorrow night. I'm out of town Tuesday. Rabbi Handler is going to be subbing. I might not be available Wednesday. I have asked him to sub for me. I'm not yet sure what will happen. I think we're almost there. It's just that these are hard Gemaras. I'm hoping by the end of this week to be totally caught up. What?
Wow.
Oh, I thought I was cutting short because the pages are short. I guess page-wise.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're seeing it. We're getting it.
We are in insight.
We're in sight. That's the right thing. Okay.